Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hero News. Kia ora Chewy, sir. How you doing there, sir? How you doing?
Good evening, Pat.
Look at us, dressed up like a couple of Antifas in our all black and that kind of stuff and being...
I'm the CEO of Antifa.
Both go hoods up.
That's known.
We can go cause some trouble.
I started
now.
it.
Go steal some Electoral signs and store them in our lounges or something.
Hoodie Man after Michael Hill.
Kia ora whānau. Thank you for being gracious last night as we took a night off because I had things to do, whānau things to do. You're whānau watching and listening, but whānau inside the place where I live, whānau. Went to my 17-year-old's last day of school, prize giving, leavers, graduation-y type thing. So that was great. Went along there and talked to a whole bunch of people and listened to a whole bunch of really interesting kids doing really interesting performances. And get this, Chewy. This will freak you out. Ducks, yep. the run-up ducks for the school, year 12.
Oh, God, my brain had to change it. I was like, why are you talking about ducks?
Yeah, run-up ducks to the school was in year 12. So that for the oldies, that's sixth form. Ducks for the school, year 12. The ducks and the run-up ducks for the school, both in their second to last year of school, not their last year of school. They're just some spectacular... The ducks for the school is already doing... university maths.
Well, we got to be careful. Can't peak too early. I'm still building up to my peak.
Yeah, same. So yes. Anyway, that was last night, and then onwards and upwards today. Got a bit to cram into the show today. I guess one of the things I want to say is there has actually been, Chewy, a little bit of tittering around the Twitterverse today about our bottom feeder shirts. There's been a few people putting up messages saying last chance tonight, because it's true. It's the last chance tonight. Now by that I mean I have promised some people I'll keep it open until end of business tomorrow. Okay? Just because that seems because people on the internet are looking for them. But because you're whānau who are here and you love us and we love you, we will give you a special deal for tonight. And that is 10% off. Until 10:30 p.m. But if you're listening to this podcast Friday morning, I'm sorry you missed it. Or if you're watching this podcast after 10:30 p.m. Thursday night, I'm sorry you missed the special. But you can still go to bhnshop.nz and pick up either bottom feeder gear, which this is the last day for them, or our regular BHN boring merch. No one really wants that stuff, do they, Chewy? They all want the bottom feeder stuff. Yeah. And someone bought 4 bottom feeder shirts the other day for their family. And I thought, actually, if you've got a loved one who voted National, why don't tonight you buy them a bottom feeder shirt? Maybe and give it to them as a gift. What a great idea that would be. So if you're watching tonight, you're watching live, you've got a chance to get 10% off. And that's flat. And can I ask one favour? We had one person last week, and it's okay, probably made a genuine mistake, that if you are in a rural delivery, please tick the rural delivery box, because rural delivery cost me about $15 to post to. So if you take the 10% discount and then you click just the normal delivery, we're basically giving you a free hoodie. Well, not free, but a no-profit hoodie, which is fine. I mean, we want to get them out there, but just if you are in an RD, tick the RD box, not the other. That's all I'm asking. So there you go. And the code for tonight is the Bish, TheBish. That's the code for tonight, because we will be talking about the Bish a little while tonight, and we thought let's give him a little bit of publicity. That's what he needs right about now. bhnshop.nz. Thanks to all who have bought so far. Last chance to get a deal with us tonight, and these will be up until close of business tomorrow for people who are on the internet who are trying to find them at the moment. The Bish. One word, TheBish. Righty. Big day tomorrow, Chewy. I think we should probably just get straight into it because we've got a little bit of chatty chat to talk about tonight.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
Big day tomorrow. We will find out tomorrow Well, we may not get a final result for what the government's going to be, because after the numbers come in, they might take a few days to negotiate. Like, will it be National and ACT by themselves? Will it be National, ACT and New Zealand First? Will it be National, ACT and New Zealand First playing hard to get? So we may not have that finalised tomorrow. We may, but we may not. What we will do is know the final numbers tomorrow. There's been some complaints about the length of time, but as one of the experts says in this piece, that's about how long it takes, because you have to get them back from overseas anyway. Forget all the, if you live in New Lynn, you have to send it to Dunedin, or if you live in Wellington Central, you have to send it to far north. Forget all those. You know, if you're living in Afghanistan and they have to come back. So it seems that 3 weeks is actually quite reasonable. I don't know whether this is predominantly people on the right, the National Party, and that kind of trying to say, oh, look at how Labour runs this thing. It's all terrible and too slow. Or I wonder if they're actually going to change it. Seems that it's about right for those international votes. But what will happen tomorrow will decide, will it be a 2-party government, a 3-party government, or is there some other unknown entity in the way, like a 2-party minority government with New Zealand First on the opposition benches, or another system. So let's have a look at the story from tonight, and then we've got some other things to talk about as well.
2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. That's when we'll finally learn the shape of the next government. The counting of special votes will be completed and the official results of the October 14 election are set to be released. On the preliminary results, National with almost 39% of the vote and ACT with almost 9, currently combined have 61 seats, a 1-seat majority. But that could all change tomorrow, and if it does, New Zealand First is sitting on the sidelines. Winston Peters' party ready to become part of a potential coalition after attracting nearly 6.5% of the vote. Now, all eyes are on these seats. Traditionally dubbed Labour's West Auckland Red Wall, major cracks appeared, and tomorrow will determine whether they topple. In Te Atatu, National's Angie Nicholas is currently just 30 votes ahead of Labour's Phil Twyford.
So that'll probably go back, because 30 votes won't hold up in the specials. Remember, there's 500,000 specials to come in. So even if you divided it up, equally throughout all the electorates, that's likely to flip that, would be my guess.
In Jacinda Ardern's former seat, Mount Albert, Labour's Helen White has a 106-vote lead over National's Melissa Lee.
That's likely to stay the same. So that'll stay with Labour.
And in nearby New Lynn, on election night, National's Paulo Garcia led Labour's Deborah Russell by 483
That's more
votes.
Interesting.
Other seats going down to the wire are Nelson, where National's Blair Cameron is currently leading Labour's Rachel Boyack by 54 votes, and also Banks Peninsula, a Labour stronghold since the late 1990s, where National's Vanessa Wennick currently has an 83-vote margin over incumbent Labour's Tracy McClellan. Here's political editor Jessica Much-Mackay with a look at what happens if seats flip.
Just remember, though, as well, the seats are far less important to a party. They're actually not important at all to a party that gets over 5%. So all this National Labour, will it flip, won't it flip? It doesn't actually matter. All that matters for a party that gets over 5% is the party vote. That's all that matters, because that determines how many MPs you've got. Now, who it does matter to is the Māori Party. That's really the only one that it matters to, because they're under 5% and in government. No other party is under 5%. For them, it makes a big difference. If they can flip some from Labour back to them, then there'll be a bigger overhang, and National and ACT will need more MPs to get majority. So if you want to see Winston Peters in the fold, if that's your particular fetish, then you'll want those Māori seats to flip. If you don't want to see Winston in, it would be more likely that he wouldn't need to be there if they stayed with Labour. That's how it kind of looks. So let's have a look at why the seats matter.
The Prime Minister in waiting getting the measure of high-performance athletes. He's also aiming high once the final results land.
We're keen to get that clarity so that we know exactly where we are and can move with great pace to put a government together.
But he's learning there's a difference between politics and business deals.
Yes, he is.
We're doing everything we possibly can. I can tell you there's good intention from everybody involved to move through this as quickly as possible.
I do wonder, that does sound very kind of CEO talk, Chewy. I've sat in meetings with high level managers and CEOs who do that kind of, when behind the scenes what they're trying to do is obviously nail it down for their company or their department, but in the meeting they're very much like this needs to be a win for everybody, we need to do this, this needs to be this, whereas that's not how politicians normally speak. Now, that's not actually a criticism, I'm just saying it's an observation, because I don't think that's how Winston Peters and how David Seymour are speaking publicly, quite like that, but it does sound very level 3 management marketing sort of thing. We're all going to win out of this. We're all going to be friends at the end, where the business person wants to just nail it down for them. So whether it's going to work or not, I guess we shall wait and see.
I think I've been honest about the reality of what we face, trying to work with New Zealand first, but also committed to accepting the will of the people and making the best possible outcome.
Christopher Luxon was meant to be going to the Pacific Island Forum on Wednesday, an opportunity to meet Pacific leaders and the Australian Prime Minister. Today, saying he can't make it.
I am beholden to the system.
A system he says needs looking at.
Does it really need to take 3 weeks to count the special votes? If we're actually working 24/7 and on something that's very important to our democracy, which is getting a robust, accurate vote count as quickly as possible.
The way we count votes.
Well, the thing about that he's wrong with, obviously, it doesn't need to be as quick as possible. I get that's an ideal. But it doesn't need to be. He says it needs to be as quick as possible. It doesn't. It needs to be as accurate as possible. Yeah. Now, Chewy, you made some noises there. You made some noises about him not being at the Pacific meeting. What are your thoughts?
I think this is a great bag of bullshit. So he's tagging out on meeting the leadership of some of our closest neighbours and the Australian Prime Minister. That's his first opportunity to touch base, and he goes, no, I gotta stick around here.
Yeah.
Out of all the things that he could delegate at this point, I think he's made a bad call here. The specials are going to come in. He's trying to portray this thing of some let's get cracking leader, but he's missing the whole point of being a prime minister.
Yeah, I wonder if I'm not going to continually reference him as a CEO or a CEO only, but if you'd just taken over a company and 3 weeks after that was a massive meeting internationally for your Pacific neighbors, as the CEO, would you go, I'm not going to go to that, or would you go, better go and press the flesh? I don't know. I haven't had the same reaction as you. I haven't been fair enough, but I haven't had quite the same visceral reaction as you have.
I must admit, my opinion has shifted a little bit. When I first heard the story this afternoon, I was like, oh yeah, okay, fair enough. But the more I think about it, the more this symbolic's probably the wrong word, but
right.
But it doesn't show a good amount of priority to our Pacific neighbours and our biggest partner, Australia and that sort of thing. It's just an odd choice to then go, no, I'm going to send Jerry Brownlee.
Yeah. All right. I mean,
and as far as what he's saying about it's ridiculous that it takes this long.
Yeah,
it absolutely doesn't. If the choice is we make it as easy as possible for as many people to vote as possible, right up to the day whether you're registered or not. Democracy's always improved by adding more people to it. Right. So that's one choice. Let's make it really super easy. You can vote for a couple of weeks. You can vote right up to the day. You don't have to jump through hoops to do it. That's great. Then you've got to make sure that your count is accurate. And that is, as you said, the most important thing. I don't want to hear about a rushed election result. I don't want to have any question of our electoral process. We've seen the road that leads down to overseas. So he's wrong.
I wonder if that's exactly why. We're going to play. There's going to be a little bit of an advert play now as to how the system works, and the advert that's played as an electoral system advert actually talks about, to make sure it's a accurate and fair count. And I wonder if the whole Trumpian international melee is a reason that they want to make it obvious to the public that we count every vote, we check every vote. They also talk about this 3-week period is not just waiting for votes; it's also they do another audit on the votes as well. Yeah. So it's like a double check as well.
And it's all done by hand, and there's no machines involved, and it's just I can't recall another politician running down our electoral process like this.
I also wonder if National picked up a seat because of all the care they were taking. I'm sure he wouldn't have a problem with that then, would he? All right, let's have a look at that little advert I was talking about.
The way we count votes is thorough and careful, so everyone can trust the results.
Yes, trust the results.
The Electoral Commission needs the extra time because Kiwis are now allowed to register on election day. It also uses the time to audit the whole system. One expert says it couldn't be that much quicker because overseas votes have to be sent back to New Zealand to make sure they're kept secret.
You know, if you're working at an embassy in, Paris or something like that, you might have 6 people come in and cast a vote in person because most people do it online. And if you're doing those checks yourself, you're going to know the names of the 6 people who came in and voted.
For those MPs on the cusp, it's going to be a restless night.
There'll be curveballs, surprises, and these will be quite consequential for the negotiations for the formation of the new government.
He says it's important to keep an eye on the Māori seats where Labour's leading.
Yep.
Te Pāti Māori are likely to win back some of those, and it could be enough to actually swing those votes out of Labour into Te Pāti Māori. And that would be quite consequential because it would increase the size of Parliament.
And increase the size of the majority needed to be in charge in this place.
There you go. So there's your story from TVNZ News. So I guess, we don't do a show on Friday nights, but if you're following me on Twitter, what are you on now, Chewy? Mastodon?
I'm on Blue
Threads?
Sky and
Blue Sky.
Mastodon, not Threads.
Not Threads.
Not Threads, just Blue Sky and Mastodon mainly.
Yeah. So I will when we get the results, and I'll be tweeting and stuff about it. So if you're not following me on Twitter already, at Pat Brittenden, and what are you on Mastodon? Child porn star or something? Is that right?
Former child star.
Oh, okay, sorry. I just thought it was. I remember something to do with porn. No, children. No, whatever. And we'll look at those tomorrow night. No, I think what you'll probably find normally, although I guess, Chewy, we've got to say, when we say normally, this hasn't been a normal election because those normalies for the left haven't come through as much. Historically speaking, we typically get the left get a bigger portion of those votes. And one of the reasons is because, for example, lots of young people, let's say who are at university in Otago, might still have their address at their home in Epsom in Auckland. So they've voted whilst being at Otago University or Wellington or Victoria or Canterbury or Auckland or whatever. And the other thing is renters as well. Younger people rent more than older people, and you might be renting in the eastern suburb of Wellington, and your family home and electoral address might be in the western suburbs of Wellington. Mm-hmm. So that's a special vote. And that's why they typically, and also international travellers tend to be more left-leaning as well because they're smarter. And they have money. That's why.
I mean, really good example. Like, I've been in my house now for about 4 years. I'm still getting electoral mail for previous tenants.
Yeah.
So I mean that's the thing. Like, they don't get their letter, they don't vote. That's bullshit. That would only disenfranchise people that moved every year because they're renting.
Yeah.
Again, it's what problem you're trying to solve. The problem is we need to make it easy for people to vote, and we need to make sure that our election is accurate. Those are the two most important things. Everything else follows that. So Paddy Gower getting all pissed off because it's taking too long and he's fucking ADD out the tits and there's nothing to do does not concern me. What does concern me is an incoming prime minister who apparently doesn't believe that MMP or the way that we count votes is good enough, and he wants to change it. That worries me. The only change that I want to hear about our electoral process is going from 3 to 4 years, or lowering the age to 16.
Remember when I talked to Michael Woodhouse and he was complaining about inflation, and I asked him, well, what would be an okay inflation? And it was about 7.5 at the time, and he went, 5.5. No one yet has asked Christopher Luxon that I've seen, so how long should it take? Because if he goes, well, you should do it on the night, you can't. If it should be a week, well, it's going to be rushed. If it should be 2 weeks, well, you're only 7 days away from that now. What's the big problem? You know what I mean? It's like, it just seems to be.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, not a big deal.
It doesn't matter in the scale of things. It does not matter.
All right, Dave has come in late and he's decided himself off his own bat to pay a late fee. It's not what we enforce, Dave, but you're welcome to do it if you want. Thank you for the little super chat there of $2. And also, and Kookie's just come right in right there with that like button, $2 super. Thank you, Kookie. We appreciate the super chat. Pam says of this conversation, we need Luxon to be there for our Pacific neighbours because China will certainly be there for them if we ain't. Now, think about that. Yeah, that's a good point. So, representing for some of the smaller, I mean, like we are little, but we're certainly still looked up to by the Vanuatus and the Fijis and the Samoas of the Pacific Rim. And we have obviously a special relationship with them as well. So it's a very good point, Pam. Let me also say that we are thinking about opening up Discord tonight. We'll see how long we go, because this is sort of a 2-night show. We are got a couple of stories from last night and a couple from tonight, so we'll see how our time goes. But if you'd like to be involved in Discord, and if you're a newbie here, all that means is jumping into Discord and heading into the waiting room. And if you're in the waiting room at some stage in the second half of the show, we'll tell you when it's happening. It's not happening just yet. We'll be able to drag you across and say g'day to you and have a chat with you, actually voice to voice rather than voice to ear, which is the current model we're doing right now. And also huge thanks to those people who have gotten involved with our attempt to win the Listener Choice Award in the New Zealand Podcast Awards. If you haven't voted for us yet and you would like to vote for us, we'd love to have your nomination. The addresses are all in the chats right now, wherever you're watching. Head to nzpodcastawards.com/nominate. And as a part of that nomination, they ask you for the link to the podcast. Now, because it's the podcast awards, yes, you might be watching us on YouTube right now, but it's probably best to put in one of our audio feeds. Now, you could put in our Spotify feed, you could put in our Google Podcasts feed, or you could put in our Apple feed. And we've actually just put, as a part of the message as well, the Apple Podcasts link. So if you need an audio link to put in that nomination, we've put it in the chat for you. If you're not subscribed to us on Apple Podcasts, then whilst you're doing it, subscribe, like they say. Huge thanks to Kiwi Skirt for the $10 super chat. Appreciate that. Early fee, LOL. I guess Kiwi is normally a late lurker. So we appreciate you being involved, Kiwi. We thank you very much for the super chat. Right. Anything else, Chewy, before we get into the bish?
No. We've talked about Patrick Gower for a political. What is his job title? Like, he's
Paddy
a political
Gower?
Commentator.
Oh, he's a something journalist. They've given them. It's like Guy and Espiner on RNZ. He's got a different, like a specials journalist or something like that.
But I mean, the men moderated political debates and that sort of thing. Is he that clueless on how the system works? Is that something we should be worried about? Is that people, like the people that are influencing other people, don't know how our system works? It is not building trust in our system.
Yeah,
that seems a bit fucky to me.
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it? Because, like I said, I think it used to be 2 weeks and now it's 3 weeks, and that's what they're complaining about. So they're actually complaining about 1 week, as the Bare Naked Ladies once said, because it used to be 2 weeks, and now it's 3. And part of that's because the system got changed, having to return the votes to the base, to the electorate that they're supposed to be voted in. So if you vote in Dunedin and your home address is Banks Peninsula, then it needs to be sent to Banks Peninsula and then voted, which I get on some hand, but I also think it's another step, Chewy. And every time a vote gets handed and moved and sent and whatever, it could end up being lost or manipulated. So I'm not complaining about it, but I'm like, it's just, if they could, 3 weeks is fine, no matter what. But it's
and let's be honest, once we've got the answer, the negotiation starts and then the government forms before Christmas, and then nothing else happens, and they all go on holiday, and we'll see you in January. It's just nothing happens. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Hey, can you handle a few of those super chats for a sec? Because there's an alarm going off in the room next to me, and I need to go and turn it off. I'll be back to you in 30 seconds.
Oh, okay. Hopefully Pat will be back. Find out this house isn't burning down. Spiderhoof, friend of the show. Most important change in government that should happen. Policies must have workings, including spreadsheets and consequences that need to be applied to lies. Yes, I think we're going to have a fun 12 months of finding out how many porcupines have to get fucking walked back from electoral promises and that sort of thing. And it is all, as we're going to talk about later on in the show, coming up with great catchphrases, build the vibe for your voting, Don't need to follow it up. Don't need to stick to your word. Don't need to show how you've worked it out. Just nonsense.
No one saw that, eh? That was pretty slick.
No, it's smooth, seamless. Your house is
okay.
Not on fire?
No. It was actually a phone alarm, and somebody had left the room. I couldn't actually figure out how to turn it off, so I've just shut my door. So I'm a shut-in right now. Right, let's have a look. Speaking of shut-ins, let's have a look at Chris Bishop, shall we? No, I'm just joking. I'm not sure he's shut-in. Now, the one thing I don't know about this, maybe it's my fault, I probably could have read it, was the email that he sent comparing Gaza, Israel, well, Hamas, Israel, I should say, to the Holocaust, is he sent it to Christina. Are you aware, someone in the chat will know, who's the Christina that he sent it to? I've missed that. Does anyone know who the actual recipient of his email was? Someone will probably tell us, I'm sure. But this is the email that he sent to Christina, and this was sent a couple of days ago. It says, "Hi, Christina. I note you don't mention the horrific barbarism by Hamas, whose charter calls for the destruction of Israel. Hamas terrorists butchered women and children in a rampage of violence and hate. Children were burned alive. People were beheaded. There was mass rape, and much of it was videoed by Hamas. Israel has released this footage, and it played to the world's media." I haven't seen that footage. Have you seen that footage, Chewy?
No, I purposely avoided it, but I've seen enough stills to say, yes, he's probably referring to a real thing.
Such barbarity has not been seen since the Holocaust. After 1945, the world said never again. Well, now it's happening again. Could you explain why your email neglects to mention these facts? Now, and this is the someone on Twitter, it was Saint Kitty. National's response to an email, unfucking believable. Not only does he show no care for the thousands of Palestinians killed, but he repeats the same bullshit propaganda that's been proven false. Fucking unbelievable and deplorable response from Chris Bishop, confirming where the New Zealand National Party stands on Israel waging a genocide in Palestine. Chris Bishop, stop repeating misinformation. This is for people in the audio podcast. I'm reading stuff off. This is not my thoughts. Show some empathy for the Palestinians too. 7,000 dead already. Half the city devastated. What's wrong with you? And then tagged all over the place. Now, I guess there's a bunch of things to talk about here. We've already acknowledged here numerous times of a terrorist act by Hamas, especially when they went into the music festival and those horrific things that they're doing. The barbarism has not been seen since the Holocaust. I'm interested to flesh that out a little bit, because
man doesn't know his history.
In the Holocaust, the Jews were not the ones in a position of power, not the ones who had the firepower, not the ones who then could fight back. They were the ultimate victims. You know, they were powerless, and I know you could argue those people at the music festival were probably as well, but post that, like the actual the country of Israel isn't really in the same place as the Jewish people were in the Holocaust. So, I mean, I don't know, how does that square off with you? He's talking about the barbarism has not been seen since the Holocaust. I mean, can we talk about Rwanda in 1995? Is there?
Yep.
Have we seen
that was pretty much right at the top of my list.
Okay.
Yeah, like here's the history nerd at me just tweaks it straight away. Like it's like we haven't seen barbarism like this since the Holocaust. Is just outright bullshit. There's been massacres, terrorist attacks, horrible cruelty. Like I spoke the other day about the Bosnian situation, the massacre at Srebrenica. That was horrific. We haven't had the scale of the Holocaust. We haven't had the industrial extermination of an entire people since World War II. And we don't have that now either.
Yeah,
this is you know, if Israel was rounding up Palestinians, putting them in camps, and then telling them to take showers, absolutely, yes, Chris, you're wrong. Oh, well, you're right. You're wrong in this case.
Yeah, but Chris is talking about the Palestinians dying. I mean, the Israelis dying, not the Palestinians.
The Israelis dying. The Palestinians
if Israel was doing what you just suggested, that still wouldn't be what he's talking about, because he's talking about Jews being killed, Israelis being killed.
He's gone full righteous anger, and it's just not accurate. It's not measured. It's not, you know, it just comes off Looney Tunes, and it's not a case of saying you know, the things that are out there that Hamas has filmed and that sort of thing didn't happen. I'm confident that it did. But the sort of, well, we can't talk about this unless you talk about this, also doesn't work, because there isn't an equivalency between they're horrible things on both sides, but they are in no way equal. It doesn't.
Kiwi Rascal says this. Most of us are just pissed off with all the dying civilians, especially the children, and the incredibly disproportionate retaliation. As long as you include in there as well. I mean, I would just add to that, Kiwi Rascal, and I'm sure you would as well, and you, Chewy, is most of us just pissed off with all the dying civilians, Hamas entering the music festival and killing them, the children, and incredibly disproportionate retaliation. Because the incredibly disproportionate retaliation is based on a terrorist attack. So I'm not saying you're not mentioning that, Kiwi Rascal, or anyone's not, but I guess I'm someone who likes to be overt in what we're saying, so people can't twist our words, at least.
And this is a big, like, I'll refer to Twitter here as well. This is a big thing that has muddied the waters. There has been so much fake videos, fake analysis, reinterpretations of footage, just outright lies going around that you can't trust what Hamas puts out to be true. By the same token, you can't trust what the Israeli government is putting out and what the IDF is putting out. They have been caught out in lie after lie after lie. So there is like, I saw one yesterday. Where is it? So this is the Israeli Foreign Ministry. It was also retweeted by the account @Israel, which I assume is the country's Twitter. This is all that's left of the murdered children. They were tortured, dismembered, and burned to death by Hamas terrorists. Archaeologists had to sift through the rubble to find their teeth. This is Hamas. Now, that is incredibly emotive, right?
I mean, I have flags. If they were burned to death by Hamas, was that in a Hamas area that they had control over? How did archaeologists get in there so quickly to do it? How did they... I mean, if archaeological dig is going to happen, you're going to find more than just teeth, but what's the... I'm assuming you're going to tell us something about these images.
Do they look like child's teeth?
No.
Now, if you go through the replies to this, and it is a sewer, there are multiple people that say that they're dentists going, that is an adult set of bridge work. These are perfectly extracted teeth. This is, you know, you can put an image on it and put it out there and people will believe it until someone who knows the subject matter turns around. You know, this happens a lot with military footage as well. It gets reinterpreted by civilians who maybe don't know what's going on. It's very easy. I've seen video game footage shown as actual combat footage from Ukraine, and people will believe it because they don't play video games. There is so much misinformation out there, and the state that Twitter is in at the moment, it is just flooding the field with bullshit. Now, I'm not saying that that's what the Bish has fallen for. I'm just saying that it is so easy for someone to find that. We've talked about your innate biases. You find something to back up what you're saying, and you go, well, that's good enough for me. Don't dig any deeper.
Well,
you know, this is full of it.
I mean, I've got this thing, most of us probably have got it at the back of my neck. It's called the bullshit nerve. And when I read something and it goes, I'm not saying anything's wrong. I'm not arrogant enough to say I know the answer, but it makes me think. So the email by the Bish, here's one of the things that I kind of went, how does that work? Okay, so all these horrific things were done, right? And they were videoed by Hamas. And then it says, Israel has released much of the footage and played it to the world's media. My nerve went, because if this has been videoed by Hamas, what did they just kind of then email it to their friends at the IDF? There seems to be a gap there for me. Now, I'm not making the claim that what he's saying is right or wrong. I don't know, but it's like I need more than just the Bish's indignation and disgust to buy something's story in its entirety. That's all I need more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also want to talk, and maybe this is on a little bit of a tangent, but I do want to talk about the things that Israel is capable of and has achieved in the past. As far as settling scores, right? It's well known that they've had Mossad agents around the world hunting down Nazis and bringing them to justice or just outright assassinating them. And they did the same with Palestinian leadership as well, that they're quite capable of being very, very targeted. I remember reading one where they swapped out a guy's cell phone with a similar cell phone that was packed full of C4, and then they gave him a phone call and blew his head off. They're quite capable of being very, very surgical. They are making the choice here to not be surgical. They are making the choice of saying, "Oh, we've been good, and we asked people to move south, and if they're still in Gaza City, that's on them because we told them to." You know, they have been bombing and shelling since day one, and now it's just like, well, you know, we tried, and go the tanks. They're hammering Gaza. It is a disproportionate response, and they are ignoring every single avenue for them to just chill out a bit and let civilians get out of where they're wanting to go. They're not doing it. They could, and they're not.
It's also
they're choosing not to.
As was pointed out on Piers Morgan, it's also such a bullshit thing to say. So therefore, if Putin had warned, cities in Ukraine that they were coming, then Putin's the good guy because he's warning the civilians. I mean, like, I said this the other night. So if Hamas had phoned the organizer of the music festival and said, "We're coming, if you don't guys move, then it's your problem," of course Israel wouldn't have gone, "Oh, well, at least they gave us a heads up." And the thing that interests me about the Mossad or the IDF and their secret agents is we seem to have a very short memory here in New Zealand. Does anyone remember the Rainbow Warrior? Anyone remember our own little history in New Zealand when that was French agents, wasn't it?
That was French, but I like, if you want to talk about the Mossad in New Zealand, they have been bad. Helen Clark ejected the ambassador because Mossad agents were caught stealing the details of dead children so they could recreate New Zealand passports for their agents. Now, one of the things, if you've ever traveled New Zealand, and you'll see, the power rankings of a passport, New Zealand passport, gets you in a lot of places and is generally considered a safe passport. We're a friendly nation. People like us. It's safe to travel on a New Zealand passport. And the Israelis were going to use that for spy work, which would just affect all of us. And when they were caught, Helen Clark ejected their ambassador back to Israel. It caused a diplomatic incident, and they're not our friends.
Yeah,
like I don't see why we should be pussyfooting around it.
Well, I think that
the statements that we've made are not strong enough.
Yeah, well, this actually leads us perfectly into what we're going to talk about, the statements that we've made, because after that email came out, Chris Bishop got kind of, all the bloody Chris's, the Bish got kind of censured for it. But as a part of this conversation on RNZ, our new hairless leader was also asked about, calls for a ceasefire. And talk about not sending a strong enough signal. What he says is he's calling for a humanitarian truce, but he refuses to say a ceasefire. What the hell is a humanitarian truce if it's not both sides ceasing firing? I don't know, but let's have a listen to what he said on RNZ. First of all about that, and then we'll play you a bit about what he said about the Bish's emails.
A email that seems to be doing...
Oops, I got this the wrong way around. This is the email bit.
Around a little bit on social media from Chris Bishop, in which he responds to some criticism, and he's likened the attack by Hamas on Israel to the Holocaust. The language is pretty extreme, but he has outlined a lot of the things that you've just talked about. Have you got any concerns about that email? I mean, is it inflammatory? Is it helpful?
Yeah, look, I spoke to him. I thought it was strong language. It's also representative of strong emotions on all sides of this debate. And I'm just acknowledging that for our Jewish communities, for our Muslim communities here in New Zealand, it's an incredibly difficult time. And it's really important, that I know there are strong emotions on all sides of this. But what New Zealand is calling for is, look, we've been consistent, say we condemn the attacks from Hamas. We support Israel's right to defend itself. We expect all parties to act in accordance with their international law obligations. We know that protection of civilians and humanitarian assistance is a real priority. And we know that long term it gets solved through a Middle East peace process restarting, not through military action, and acknowledging that it is a difficult time for the communities within New Zealand who have family and loved ones that have been caught up in this conflict. And so, it is a tragic set of circumstances that is playing out. And that's the way that we need to move through it.
So what I don't understand is if he says the right for Israel to defend itself, that's always said by everybody. This is an offensive move now. It's not a defensive move, right? And we want everyone to basically stay to the laws of war, which, well, no one is, neither Hamas nor Israel doing that. So he's saying that we've got to do all these things, but he's not prepared to go, and they're not following the rules. He's open to, and this is all politicians actually. I remember asking James Shaw about Taiwan. I wanted to drop him in it. I wanted to say, why is everyone so scared to talk about Taiwan and China? And he wouldn't talk about Taiwan and China because I wanted to test the waters. But it's like he's saying we have to make sure everyone follows the rules of war. Israel's not. But he's not prepared to say Israel's not. He's just saying that everyone should. Why won't they take the next step? And I'm not. This is not actually necessarily a criticism of him because all politicians are doing this at the moment, especially here in New Zealand.
Yes. Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. It's a criticism of everyone. We're pussyfooting around and we're watching just something horrific happen. Like something horrific happened to start this latest round of it. But like if we're talking about a score, a scoreboard, 1,400 people died in Israel. Israelis died. Not even all Israelis. But in the Hamas attack, Hamas killed 1,400 people. It's over 9,000 Palestinians now. 40% of them are expected to be children.
Wow.
Yeah, okay, we get it. You're fucking mad. You're scary mad. Now just chill. Like I always wonder when it comes to like a country that has a really unfriendly, aggressive regime, right? And the feeling is to wall them off and isolate them and that sort of thing, or be really aggressive back to them or that sort of thing. What has Israel done for the people of Palestine to make them reject Hamas, apart from we are bombing you because Hamas is there?
Yeah.
Have they given them any opportunity to say? Yeah,
I'll say something really. It's really, really oversimplified, and I get that they're in war, and this is hundreds, if not thousands, of years of sort of tension. But I talked to my 14-year-old the other day about winning. You can catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. You can get a win more easily, sometimes doing something supportive, than it's the carrot or the stick. And it seems that all Israel's got is a stick, nothing else. And it's a constant stick because, Gaza's been shut off for how long? Decades now? And getting smaller and smaller and smaller, encroached into. Stick. They haven't even tried the carrot. I wonder what would happen if they did. Like, I'm not talking today because obviously, when you say 1,400 Israelis have died, I don't want to make it sound like that's an equal because it's not. But think about 1,400 people dying at the hands of people versus a huge number of people dying with a building coming down. Like individual hands of people. That's horrific. Like I don't want to get over and play a game of 9,000 people versus 1,400 because 1,400 people killed by guns or swords or knives or whatever. I can't fathom that. I cannot fathom that in the slightest. So I get that right now it's the wrong time to be talking about, using the carrot, not the stick. But they've never used the carrot. What would happen if they did? I just wonder if there's a response there, a responsibility to Israel to try a different way. If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got.
Yeah. And look, in my perfect version of the world, or somewhat perfect version of the world, this is what the UN's supposed to be for.
Yeah.
You know what? Like the Security Council veto means that nothing's going to happen.
How do we get rid of that? I mean, isn't that the answer?
Well, you've got to get them all to agree.
No, but maybe you just don't.
Them all to agree.
Maybe you just eject them. Maybe you get rid of them. And the other, because there's only 5 of them, isn't there? Isn't there 5 in the Security Council? If you get rid of them and the other 190-ish go off and start working in a way that we can change at least our parts of the world.
Because I mean, we've got UN observers in the Middle East and that sort of thing, and they just sit there and observe. But I mean, if you look at the past history most recent history of the UN trying to stop anything, it doesn't work. You know, they were impotent in stopping the massacres in Bosnia. I read a horrific account of Canadian peacekeepers that were literally parked on top of a village watching it be ethnically cleansed, asking for orders to go down and stop it, and nothing happened.
Right.
You know, you mentioned Rwanda. You know, a woefully under-resourced UN mission could have made a difference there, but didn't. But this is horrific enough that something should be done. Like there should be guys in blue flak jackets and helmets standing right in the middle and going, no more. But it's not built for that. It should be, but it's not.
Dave has just given us a $10 super chat. Thank you, Dave. Dave says Israel has offered peace terms in the 60s, 70s, 80s, but it got less and less. And the other issue is always been that Palestine doesn't want to accept just part of their land. They want it all back. I mean, I guess if that was accurate, I don't know if that's accurate or not. Joey, you're much more knowledgeable than me of the geopolitical nature in the region. I can understand people wanting all of their land back, but if you look to little old Aotearoa, you know, Māori and the Crown seem to have come up with some kind of compromise where they'll get some settlement for some of their land and they'll get some of their land back and not other parts, because we're now 2023. If that was the impedance, that it's all or nothing, that's not negotiations. But I mean, maybe it's different. And I think, Chewie, you said something really smart. You were talking about encouraging the people of Gaza away from Hamas. How do you do that? Because I'm sure the people of Gaza probably speak with a very different voice than Hamas itself. I mean, there'll be lots of Hamas supporters, but not everyone in Gaza will be.
Because Hamas is a multifaceted organization. Yes, there's the guys in the black headbands that are just out for blood. But Hamas is also the people that are picking up the rubbish. They're the form of government that they have there. So, you know, who keeps the water on? That sort of thing. I mean, I think it's real hard to go, hey, look, we're an example of a country that has 2 people that signed a treaty. Maybe you should try that. Yeah. It's not perfect. But, you know, one of the things is Israel came out for Jewish people to have a homeland after truly mind-bogglingly monstrous things happened. The Jewish right of return is a thing. You know, they want all Jews to be able to return to their homeland. That makes it really difficult for the people that already live there. But there needs to be something there of just like, look, here's an advanced, you know, first world country. You know, economy's good, we're strong. We want you to be part of that, and we've got to have some sort of equity in here. We both want to live here. Let's start from that.
Yeah.
But it's so tangled in religion and literally thousands and thousands of years of history. You know, the Israelis got their country through terrorism as well. You know, when they were fighting back against the British Mandate and that sort of thing. So, yeah, it's a goddamn mess. It's just like, is it one of those things where you just grab representatives from both sides and lock them in a room and go, you don't come out until you've sorted it out? Because we're all sick of seeing this footage.
Unless what happens is only one group come out because the other group are being dealt to. I don't know. Hey, let's have a look at...
Like the two-state solution isn't working. Like, it's clearly not working because Israel's nibbling away at the West Bank and they've walled off the Gaza Strip. You know, I watched a documentary the other day that was just talking about the truest apartheid state is in the West Bank and I think it's East Jerusalem and that sort of thing, where Palestinians can't even walk on certain streets or catch certain buses, and it's not. We know that that's not good and that doesn't work, but it's out in the open. We can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And it's I just think it's incredibly impotent that on one hand, America's going, well, hey, Israel, maybe chill out a little bit. We are going to give you billions and billions of dollars. Are you going to chill out? And they go, we'll take that money and we're not going to chill out at all. Okay, well, I tried. It didn't work.
Yeah, well, America, the new Speaker of the House in America authorized a $14.6 billion aid package to Israel. Was the first thing they did a couple of
What do they need? Oh,
exactly.
Have they massively depleted their 155 millimeter artillery rounds and 1,000-pound general purpose bombs
that they bought from America?
Oh,
so America gives them the money, then they buy it back from America. Let's have a look at this clip now, or listen to this clip now, which is actually the one I teed up earlier, with Christopher Luxon talking about calling for a humanitarian truce. He won't say ceasefire. I mean, with respect to Mr. Luxon, Chris Hipkins wouldn't talk about a ceasefire either. So this is not just me poking the bone at old Luxo flakes. But it's interesting how all politicians seem to tie themselves in knots not to say the words ceasefire and not to lay the blame on Israel. They'll lay the blame on Hamas, right? But they won't lay any blame for the disproportionate response on Israel. Let's have a listen.
8,000 Palestinian civilians killed, over 3,000 women and children killed. Do you believe that Israel is acting under international law, and is this collective punishment?
Again, those are determinations for ICC and others to make, but all we're saying is that we expect all parties to be acting in accordance with international law and to demonstrate basic humanity.
So calling for parties to act under international law and calling for humanity. So why can't you go from there? I'm just asking of all politicians, why can't you take one step further and say which Israel isn't? Why can't you? Because you can go one step further and say Hamas isn't. Everyone will say that. But why can't you go one step further and say Israel isn't doing those things? I am actually genuinely confused about that. And but no politician will seem to want to do that, unless in New Zealand at least you say you're in the Greens. And I don't know if the Māori Party would go down that path, but the major parties, no one will say that.
It's super easy to do because you can look at the news yesterday and see that Israel bombed a refugee camp. And then everyone says, oh, well, you shouldn't bomb a refugee camp. And then they did it again. It's real easy.
All right, we'll play the rest of this. Are you going to play for me, wee girl? Here we go.
But we also do support Israel's right to defend itself. Yeah. And, Hamas's attacks were unacceptable, barbaric and terrorist acts.
So that's what I'm saying. Everyone will say Hamas's attacks, including us, were barbaric. They were terrorist acts, no question. But then they say, and Israel has the right to defend itself. Why won't they say Israel is also committing war crimes right now? That's the thing that I'm bewildered by. What kind of power is over all of these politicians, all of them, who will say Hamas did a barbaric terrorist attack and Israel has the right to defend itself? Why can't you say Israel has the right to defend itself? But at the moment, there are unquestionable war crimes going on. Why won't that come out of any politician's mouths?
On Israel. And so, but what we're calling for is all parties need to act in accordance with international law.
Which they're not.
We know that there's a major need to protect civilians and to get humanitarian assistance into Gaza, and it's incredibly important that happens. But we also know that long-term military action doesn't deliver peace in this region. It actually has to.
Just to be clear, though,
the Middle East peace process.
Because Chris Hipkins yesterday, I think, was suggesting that he didn't think that a ceasefire as such was necessarily appropriate. Do you agree with that? I mean, what is the reason when we see so many civilians dying for not having a ceasefire?
Well, again, we want to see a cessation of activity, of hostilities in this region. And
you do want a ceasefire.
Say a ceasefire then.
Well, the parties don't want a ceasefire. It's the reality of it on the ground at the moment.
But does New Zealand? I want to know if New Zealand is calling for it. It's really significant. Are we calling for a ceasefire or not? Would you?
What we have called for is a humanitarian truce so that we can get assistance and aid to help innocent civilians. That's exactly what we need right now.
That'd be a ceasefire there, Luxo.
Whether it's a ceasefire, whether it's a truce, whether it's we need to be able to get people aid into that region.
Did they not cover this in deodorant at school?
Let me put this another way. Do you believe Israel is right to go in and take out Hamas?
I believe Israel has completely a right to defend itself. What we saw from Hamas was unprovoked, barbaric terrorist activity. And if you look at the speeches that the New Zealand ambassador to the UN has given in the General Assembly and at the Security Council, we condemn outright Hamas's attack on Israel. We support totally Israel's right to defend itself, but we ask that all parties act in accordance with international law and the obligations that they have.
So there you go. Kind of exactly what we were saying. And let me just put something up, not really in defence of Luxon, but just to say, Raywin says Luxon is an evangelist American plus New Zealand Free Day. I agree there could be an evangelist kind of, I love Israel kind of thing going on. Evangelist? Sorry, I mean evangelical. But all of them do it. This is not a Luxon issue. This is all mainstream, middle of the road, centre left, centre right politicians do this. And you heard him do it 2 or 3 times there. You identify Hamas as being barbaric, that it was a terrorist attack, and Israel has the right to defend itself. You can actually say Israel has the right to defend itself, but at the moment they've missed the mark and they're committing war crimes. You can have both of those thoughts at the same time.
If someone punches me in the face in a bar, I've been attacked. If I punch that person back and knock him on his ass and stop the fight, I have defended myself. If I do that, take his wallet, find out where he lives, go to the kindergarten where his kids go and burn that down, I'm not defending myself anymore. Yeah. I'm being a fucking psycho.
Yeah,
that's what's happened. They've gone way beyond defending themselves. Way beyond.
Yeah, no, I agree. Hey, look, the other thing I wanted to get through this story is actually the idea about what is true and what is not. And we don't have any answers for you innately because there is so much information out there from this side and from that side and showing this and showing that. But I wanted to show you one thing about, beheaded babies. We're hearing about that quite a bit. Beheaded babies, beheaded people, all this kind of stuff. And I think we've been pretty good on this. When we did this for the first time, we had a guest on, Marilyn Garson from the Alternative Jewish Voices in New Zealand, and I put out a tweet that said that her and I chat about when she lived in Gaza for 4 years as a Jew and the reports that Israel bombed a hospital in Gaza yesterday, right? So I've said very clearly that the reports were Israel bombed, because it was. Everyone said it. BBC said it. 3 News said it. Everyone said that Israel had bombed it. Those were the reports. Juliet Moses, who is the spokesperson for, is it the Jewish Alliance, the Jewish Force, Council? Defence Force? Council, Jewish Council in New Zealand. Says not only is it grossly irresponsible at best to claim Israel bombed a hospital, no one did that in this tweet. You can see very clearly I said the reports were saying. Given all other counter evidence is misleading to say that Marilyn lived, quote, as a Jew in Gaza, this extract of her is on the AJV website, which incidentally represents a total of 6 people. On her last day, Marilyn's final task was to tell her Gaza colleagues that she is a Jew. So I guess what she's saying is she wasn't, singing Hava Nagila Hava every morning out loud out the front of the building, but she was a Jewish person living in Gaza. I think that's pretty clear. And the reason, sorry, I didn't tell you earlier, the reason I was showing that text was because Juliet's also someone who's been putting the Chris Bishop stuff out there. And she said of that, this seems to be what set off a campaign against Bishop for stating the truth that children were burned alive, that there was mass rape, people were beheaded, and that such barbarity has not been seen since the Holocaust. He was then accused of bullshit propaganda and misinformation. So I wanted just to look at one part of that, and this is the case that's been going around, the decapitated babies. This is Global Voices Advox, deconstructing the beheaded babies misinformation in Israel's war on Gaza. I'm going to read you this in case you're in the audio podcast, but it does quite a good job of tracking the story, I guess what they're saying the truth is, and where the stories come from. One of the most egregious cases of misinformation since October 7 concerns false information about beheaded babies. Misinformation about beheaded babies began with Nicole Zedek, a correspondent for the privately owned Israeli I-24 News, who reported, quote, that Israel soldiers told her they found babies, their heads cut off, end quote. However, Israeli Forces spokesperson Doron Spielman could not confirm this report as per NBC News. While 28 Israeli children have been confirmed as casualties, there is no photographic or verifiable documented evidence supporting the allegation of decapitated babies. The Daily Mail subsequently published an article that further perpetuated the rumour, but failed to exercise due diligence in terms of fact-checking or seeking verifiable sources. The claim was presented in the headline and reiterated throughout the piece, lacking supporting evidence or eyewitness statements. Between October 10 and 11, the claim went viral across a number of major media outlets and the news agencies worldwide, including BBC, CNN, CBS, Sky News, Metro News, Fox News, Business Insider. Notably, it remained unsubstantiated, unverified, and unchecked during this time. On October 11, during a White House press conference, President Biden perpetrated the claim, implying that he had seen evidence, although he hadn't. He stated, I've been doing this a long time. I never thought that I would see and have confirmed pictures of terrorists beheading children. I never thought I'd ever. Anyway, following the press conference, CNN issued a clarification stating, after President Biden's remarks earlier today, an administration official told CNN neither Biden nor the administration had seen pictures or confirmed reports of children or infants beheaded by Hamas. The National Endowment for Democracy reported, that's an interesting place to use endowment, in 2020, that information evoking emotions like fear, disgust, awe, and anger tends to go viral, even when entirely fabricated. Those spreading substantiated claims about the 40 beheaded babies may have garnered attention, clicks, likes, shares, but they've also collectively disregarded journalistic due diligence by sharing heinous claims without verification.
It's literally hearsay.
Yeah. Now, I got to be honest. I can't tell you whether that's true or not, whether that did or didn't happen, but there's no evidence for that that's been shown. So all I would say to you right now is until that gets substantiated, it's got to be treated as a rumor. And I think that if one thing I would all agree about the kind of communication system through the IDF is they're pretty good at putting out information that will harm the other side. If we haven't seen it from them, it makes it seem less likely to me. And as I always say, you don't have to lie if the truth is good enough. Now, that sounds like a horrible way to say it, but if you want to set your case against Hamas, 1,400 dead people in an attack on a music festival, you don't need to do anything further. They don't need to be any more dehumanized. That's enough. Like, they're dehumanized.
Like if Israel's just said, like, look, they've killed this many people and 28 of them are children, that's bad enough. That's bad enough. When they start doing, when they start embellishing, when they start getting caught out in the details, like the teeth thing that I was talking about before, right?
Yep.
It just whittles away. You cannot trust what either side is saying. There is no good guy, bad guy in this. It is not clear cut. We love to pick sides. In this case, it seems like Hamas and the IDF and the Israeli government are horrible in their choices, horrible in their reaction, and civilians and children on both sides are getting absolutely fucked on for a fight that none of them chose.
Yeah. And
the best thing that could happen for those people, the people that actually matter, the people that are at the pointy end of high explosive coming down from the skies, is that everybody knock it off and let them get out of the way.
And look, just to chat with Peter Ness says, Peter, it was more than just an attack on the music festival. I know, I got that. Just the example that I think is easiest to know, because they also went into some Jewish settlements and pulled people out of their homes, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not saying other things didn't happen, but I guess for sake of brevity, which might be the wrong thing to do when we're talking about such serious things, we've all seen the images. We all have seen the footage of the music festival. So yes, I also acknowledge it wasn't just that, there was other things as well. I'm completely with you. I've got that. Hey, listen, we're an hour and 3 minutes in, and we've got another story to do yet, which I want to do because it's been a part of the teasers as to why we're doing it. So
we did go off a little bit.
Yeah, but that's okay. We don't have to rush. But if there's anything else you want to speak to here, Chewy, or anything in the chat you particularly want to get to, we can. Or else I'll go into Christopher Luxon and being challenged yesterday on the gang situation and how he's going to handle it.
No, let's crack on.
All right. So yesterday morning on breakfast, and obviously this is from yesterday morning because we weren't here last night live, Christopher Luxon was talking a little bit about, he probably wasn't wanting to talk about it, but was talking with the host on the show about gang patches. And they started the conversation with, what is a gang patch?
What is a gang patch to you?
That's what I said.
Look, we can discuss this. We discussed this on the other side of the election. Gang membership's up 70% under this government. Violent crimes up over 30%. All we're doing is extending, removal of gang patches in public places.
So what is a gang patch to you then?
A gang patch on, an insignia on the back of someone's jacket and everything we've talked about is well understood in New Zealand. It's happened in Queensland. It's happened in Western Australia. We've done it already in New Zealand about banning gang patches in public places like hospitals and schools and courtrooms. All we're doing is expanding it into public places.
Would you have a list perhaps or names or designs of gang patches that you would then mandate were banned?
Again, they're under the existing legislation today where gang patches are banned in courtrooms, schools and hospitals. Essentially those list of gangs are well established and well understood.
Yeah, but being in a public place is a bit different to a courtroom where a judge has a say over however anybody who walks in dresses and whether he wants them in
Sure, but actually...
That's a really good point by Anna, a really good point. So it's a judge can say, you have to wear pants, whatever, no Speedos. Like they can make their determination on any kind of clothing, any way someone's dressed coming into their courtroom. You can't do that in the town square. Like you can't say no flip-flops in a town square. You can't say you're not allowed to wear Nikes. You can't say, you silly students, you can't go to the Octagon wearing, flippers and Speedos because there's no Speedos in the Octagon. So there is quite a big difference here that the control that a judge can do with a judge's order in his or her courtroom is very different to a public space. So it's actually a really good question, and you'll be surprised that there's a lacking of an answer.
This has happened in other parts of the world. We're confident our police will be able to enforce it, and it's about intimidation. And New Zealanders get that, and they understand that. And so
he keeps saying this: New Zealanders get that, and they understand that. He's apparently speaking on behalf of us, but maybe I'm the only 1 out of 5 million. I don't get it. And the other thing I don't get, and this is what we wrote in the introduction to this episode, is he's thrown before and continues to throw the police a hospital pass. Now, last week when we talked about this conversation, he hadn't talked to the chief of police. But he's saying, quote, and I've written it down, our police will be able to enforce it. So they haven't made the legislation yet. Remember, he talked about the police going into a funeral with maybe 1,500 gang members, and the police would go into that funeral and take the jackets off people. I think he did that in one of the debates. So it feels to me like there's this hospital pass being thrown, basically saying, whatever we do, however flimsy the law is, however much danger it puts police in, they'll handle it. And it does, Chewy, feel like a bit of a hospital pass.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you can define, like, I'm not a lawyer, you can define a gang patch. There's an insignia. There's usually an affiliation or a geographical location and a rank. But a top and bottom rocker is often, but it's not universal. Others do. I have a vest with a big patch on the back. I'm not in a gang, but it could look like that from a distance.
I still
by the
wonder...
same token, like these guys don't wear their patches everywhere, but they still represent wherever they go. If you saw a guy wearing black tracksuit pants, red basketball shoes, a red hoodie, maybe a red bandana, what gang is that guy in?
Yeah,
we all know, but there's no insignia there.
I did think I know we weren't making a joke, but I was being flippant last week. What if one of the gangs decides to turn their insignia into a clothing label? And I'm not saying selling gang patches, but a gang like label, and they have it on the back, what are the police going to do then? When it's no longer a gang patch, it just happens to be the patch that's been turned into like a clothing label. What then? So that might sound I might be being a bit finicky. You might go, oh yeah, splitting hairs, maybe. But I've said it before and I'll say it again, laws need to be quite precise. And we already know that the Mongrel Mob have employed a lawyer to look into the legalities of this. And we also know, thanks to Chester Burrows, that the last time the government tried to do, or Wanganui Council tried to do this, it got overturned in the courts. They couldn't do it. So here's a question for you. If our police will be able to enforce it, I wonder how the police feel about that. Can't say whether Mr. Luxon has or hasn't spoken to, I think it's Peter Costello, isn't it, the head of police, yet. But last time he was making these same claims, he hadn't. So we'll continue a bit more with this.
Yes, gang patches are going. Yes, there'll be dispersal and anti-consorting powers for police. Yes, there'll be actually firearm prohibition orders and warrantless search powers as well.
I don't mean to be facetious, but if you've got a charity biker gang and they happen to have a patch on the back of their jacket, do they count?
I trust our police, Anna, to actually make good judgment around how to enforce the legislation that we pass in Parliament to make sure that's the case.
Okay, so you feel the rules are...
So what that means is the police have discretion. You got that, Joey? I trust the police will know how to enforce it.
That's squirrely.
But that means there's discretion. So what happens if the discretion from the police goes, we'll just leave those guys with their patches today? They're not causing any trouble. Because if he's going to trust the police being able to do it correctly, that means the police have discretion.
Or traditionally, if you look what's happened when the police are given discretion, is the brown gang members are gone. The white ones will be fine.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's true. What about a swastika? Is that a gang patch? I've never thought about that. That's a very good question. Hello, people living in Christchurch. You've got a few of them around your neck of the woods. What about a swastika on the back of things or on the side of things?
And it's one thing to say the police will have discretion. The police have a lot of discretion in a lot of ways. Like they don't even need Luxon to say that they have discretion. Police use that discretion every day when they choose to pour out a drink that someone's drinking in public rather than give them the fine or charge that they're well within their rights to do. Or whether they send someone to court for a little amount of weed, or they just go, come on, man. Police have always had discretion. But if they are going to stop it, if they are going to outlaw and make this a thing that goes to court, it has to be defendable.
Yeah.
And if he can't even define what it is, lawyers are just going to dine out on this to the point where it's just irrelevant. I noticed someone in the chat talking about this is from Twitch. Craggles Brown, Wanganui put a ban on them and it did stop. The gangs there took a huge hit. That is incorrect. Because we've spoken to the MP for that area that was around for it. It did not work.
Didn't do anything.
Didn't do anything, and it was proved to be unenforceable and illegal. So don't believe the hype. They keep coming back to this old idea that it's disproven. It does not work. It is unenforceable. And he's being wishy-washy about how they're going to implement it, and they're going to put people in harm's way to try and, to try and do it. I keep coming back to the thing. What is the problem that National were trying to solve? They are not trying to solve the gang problem. They're trying to solve we weren't the government.
Yeah,
now they are.
I think also we think about the gangs that are the, some people might say are the scary ones and stuff, but I think Joshy Washy's got it correct. He's picked out the scariest group of people you don't want to fuck with. He said, what about my Magic the Gathering patch? I mean, you don't want to mess with those fuckers. They're cray.
Yeah, but like we joke, but Destiny Church has their own motorcycle gang.
Yep.
They look, they act, they fit all of the things about being a motorcycle gang. If you took someone that didn't know their origin and put them next to a picture of the Mongrel Mob and you go, are these both motorcycle gangs? Your average punter is going to go, yes. One just has to be aligned with a church. So how do you well, obviously there's a church. No, they're good, but they're behaving exactly like a motorcycle gang does.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's keep going with the story. after the police, remember, so he's saying that he doesn't use these words, but if he trusts the police to make the right decision and be able to enforce it, he's saying that the police have discretion.
Aligned enough at the moment that they don't need any clarification.
The rules will be clear. They have been implemented already in parts of New Zealand. They've been implemented in other parts of the world, and New Zealanders understand what this is about. It's about removing intimidation.
In some parts where gang patches have been ruled out, bylaws, perhaps like Wanganui, an example of this, that law was found, or that bylaw rather, was found to be a breach of the Bill of Rights. Are you concerned that your law will be a breach of any rights?
Well, I think what's a reality is gang members want the rights of being Kiwis, but they're not prepared to take the responsibilities of being Kiwi. And, that's the deal. And so the reality is, I'm sorry, but I've been really...
I'd like to know from him what that means. What's the responsibility of being a Kiwi? It sounds like he's got a checklist. Now, I'm not saying that gangs add a huge amount to the general population, but what's the responsibilities of being a Kiwi? True. She didn't ask him, but what do you think he'd say?
Well, because if you remember the rules that we all signed when we arrived in this world, it's to like Marmite more than Vegemite.
Yes, I do that.
It's to call thongs jandals.
Yep, I do that.
It's to wear shorts in all weather.
Yep, I definitely do that.
There's some regional stuff as well, mainly around drinking space.
Yeah, the thing you missed out, though, the thing you missed out was summer shoes are jandals, winter shoes are socks and jandals. That's the other thing about being a Kiwi.
Yeah, again, it's more nonsense.
Yeah.
Nobody agreed to the rules of being a Kiwi. What bullshit are you talking?
Yeah, because I guarantee you, and this is the silliness of this whole statement, if you did a checklist of what it means to be a Kiwi, you probably find that 90% of us wouldn't fit into part of it somewhere. That's the whole point of it.
Clear about it. I don't know how to be any clearer about it.
But is that a breach of rights?
We're going to make gang life really unacceptable here in New Zealand. It's going to be tough under a national government. No qualms about it.
Is that still going to be a breach of their rights?
What I'm saying to you is they breach their rights as New Zealanders each and every day.
What does that
misery
mean?
And pain and
what does that mean? They breach their rights of being New Zealanders. What does that fucking mean?
On Kiwi
but if
families
they're just
with
walking
drugs
down
and all
the
sorts of
street
things.
And they're in town, is that a breach of their rights?
Again, what I'm saying to you is we've made a decision. We want to ban gang patches in public places because it's about intimidation. To earn a gang patch, you have to have done something intimidatory and violent often. And so,
now, I wanted to play did you hear what the heavy lifting that word often was doing? That often was doing some heavy lifting because he probably checked himself a little bit before he wrecked himself. Listen to the word often and think how heavy the lifting that one word is doing.
Is that a breach of their rights?
Again, what I'm saying to you is we've made a decision. We want to ban gang patches in public places because it's about intimidation. To earn a gang patch, you have to have done something intimidatory and violent often. And so I'm sorry. I appreciate there's lots of different points.
Some heavy lifting there to make sure he doesn't make it an absolute statement.
View about it.
So even if
we
you're
are
not
going
committing a crime in that
we're going to be tough on gangs, and that's what we're clear about.
You're not worried about it being a breach of anyone's freedom of expression or rights?
No, we're not going to have gang members wearing gang patches. We're not going to have gang members intimidating members of the New Zealand public. We're not going to have a 70% growth in gang members, and we're not going to have a 33% growth in violent crime.
Just quickly, how will you police it practically? You're asking police to do more than they do at the moment, and they will tell you on any given day they're already stretched. What will you practically
Well, I trust our police to enforce the legislation and the rules that Parliament will pass. They've done that with respect.
Let's just throw you that hospital pass again. Whatever we're going to do, however much danger it puts the police in the way, however flimsy it's going to be, they can handle it. We'll just sit in the beehive and make our edicts from on high, and you guys will just you'll do everything you need to do for sure. No problem.
Gang patches in public places. No, I trust them to. It's not for me to, but they will determine how to enforce that legislation and make sure that gang members are compliant with that rule.
Do they need more resources though to do it?
Well, as we said, we want to increase gang membership, police membership by another 300 police officers. Actually, putting them into places where there are real hotspots in major cities across New Zealand. That's part of our election commitment as well. And we want to make sure that our police have all the tools that they need to actually fight gangs, to have serious consequences for young offenders and a whole range of things. As I said in the campaign, we're really serious about this. We need to restore law and order. We need to restore personal responsibility. We're going to do that.
All right, just quickly.
There we go. That's it for now. I just saw Dr Green, who was in our chat at the moment, say something. I thought he was going to tell us that it was our shirt because Dr got one of our shirts. But Dr says, I was refused entry to the court in Palmerston North because my T-shirt was deemed to be a gang patch. It was a Dactory shirt. The Dactory shirt. So there you go. There's an example of discretion, I guess, going the other way. So now, because if the police can make the decisions on how they're going to enforce it, then of course they can decide that the Destiny Church patches are gang patches, or that those BHN shirts that we're going to get are gang patches. They can decide it.
They can't decide this. Our potential incoming police minister is making comments about gang members having to wear foundation to cover up tattoos before breaking the law. This is just idiocy. These guys, you can't combat something without understanding it. These guys clearly do not understand how to solve the gang problem.
Yeah, that's exactly the part we're going to finish up on, the bit about the tattoos and getting natural glow to cover them up. And this is going to be the last part of the same story. Nationals plan to make gang members cover face tattoos with foundation. Ludicrous, expert says. This plan comes under fire and may face legal challenges, with veteran legal academic and retired lecturer Dr Bill Hodge telling News Hub the idea is ridiculous and ludicrous. I've got a lot of respect for Mark Mitchell, but I think the possibility of requiring a form of makeup, whether it's a base and foundation on people for what they have historically had on their body or on their face, has got intrinsic and pragmatic and human rights issues. He said the pragmatic issue is what happens if the person gets caught in rain? What happens if it starts to run? What happens if they don't have a makeup artist in the gang? It verges on the ludicrous to some aspects. Dr. Hodge comments come after Tokoroa lawyer Arama Naapo confirmed to News Hub that she's been asked by certain members of the Mongrel Mob to investigate the legality of National's plan. Any legislation that tells people what they can and cannot do with their body, in my opinion, is a clear breach of the Bill of Rights, Naapo told News Hub. I don't think you can Thin Lizzy the problem that we're having relating to crime away, and it completely ignores the fact that we have lots of really serious issues in this country that can't be covered by makeup. I think that's a really interesting last comment that she makes, because we kind of talked about this through the election campaign, but so did National, about focusing on the important things. And do we really think that the incoming Minister of Police, the biggest issue on his plate should be making sure the gangs are supplied with enough makeup? Like, is that really the biggest driver for a Minister of Police to come into a new government that's been talking about how terrible the last government was to have on their plate and to be pushing through?
The other thing I want to touch on here, right, is one of the things about gangs and motorcycle clubs and that sort of thing, is they take pride in the fact that they're outlaws, like literally outside the law, outside of society. In the case of the Mongrel Mob, it started from people who felt that they were rejected by New Zealand society, so they don't fucking need you anymore. That's why these guys who were rebelling against their father's generation that went off and fought the Nazis decided to adopt the swastika as their symbol. It was a fuck you. Everything that they do is a fuck you to society. They will not care if you outlaw their gang patches. They want to be outside the law. If you make them more outside the law, it won't change things for them. They'll find ways to adapt, because that's what people do. And if they have no respect for what you're trying to do, well, they'll piss on that too. You're giving more power to them, to that lifestyle. They'll feel more alienated, and so they'll just go inwards. They already have their own tribe. They already have their own rules. They already have their own standards. They don't care what us normies think about them. But if we're trying to solve a gang problem, we're not talking about the gang members. We're talking about their fucking kids.
Yeah.
We have to get them out of that. That's how you do it. You talk to the women, and you try and get their kids out of it, and these guys do not understand it. It's exactly what we're talking about with Israel. That coming down hard on them is just going to make people dig in their heels. Like the other thing I want to do is I just want to talk about a little chat message I saw a little while ago. Peter Piper. Explain how you define a gang from a club. Enlighten me, Chewy. Well, see, now this is the problem. A gang can be a club, and a club can be a gang. And this is what this is when you come in and you say that you've got anti-gang legislation, this is what you need to make clear. There is, I forget the name of it, but there is a motorcycle club of older dudes that run around. They often do charity runs and stuff like that. They have all the looks of a motorcycle gang. They take all the form of a motorcycle gang. They have a leather vest. They have an insignia. They have badges of rank. They have all of those things. They tick all the boxes for this is visually what a gang is. Thank you, chat. Yes, the Ulysses Club. A lot of them are in the Ulysses Club. They're also former motorcycle gang members that have pulled themselves out of that life and are just kind of like some of the life to remain. They're riding motorbikes and looking tough. You know, you could say the same thing about, you know, Destiny's little motorcycle gang. They have all the look and form of a motorcycle club. They are aping it. A gang doesn't necessarily say that they're a gang. I grew up around a motorcycle gang. The Devil's Henchman MC, motorcycle club. They had a clubhouse. They had a secretary. They had a president. They had elections. You had to pay club dues to be in it. You just can't unentangle that unless you're pointing at a police officer and going, nah, fuck it, you sort it out. Are these 50 guys riding motorcycle gangs on a charity run, or are they running meth?
That's actually a really good point, thinking about the practicality of it, because like I was thinking it's quite easy to cut apart who the gang is, and that's the criminal activity. However, if it's then down to the discretion of the police officer, and the police officer doesn't know if that group of patched motorcyclists coming into their small town, they're not going to know whether that group is necessarily a criminal entity or not. They're just going to see the patch. So that single policeman in the small town in New Zealand, if they don't know who the Ulysses Club are or whatever, see them rolling into town and basically tell them to take all their patches off, because they don't have like the direct link to Christopher Luxon to know, is this one of the bad gangs or one of the good gangs, or is this a club? They won't know. Now, probably from Parliament, you can make a determination based on criminal activity, but on the street, seeing someone in a black leather jacket with a vest on the back with stripes on the side and, you know, 4 or 5 other guys, how are they going to know necessarily? So actually that makes it harder for the police. And when Luxon goes, the police will be able to figure this out, basically. That makes it even harder because, yes, we know the big gangs, but I'm sure there's tons of regional small groups, entities, gangs that look very similar that ride motorbikes, and how will they be known out from the ones that the government says they're trying to focus on?
Yeah, Peter here is still not getting it. Like, yes, a policeman can probably look at something and go, yes, that is the bad gang in town. But what do you do from there? You can't go to court and say, this is the bad gang because I'm a policeman and I know. You have to prove it. And at the moment, this is crazy. This will blow your fucking mind. Doing crime is illegal now. It doesn't matter what you're wearing. It's the doing of the crime.
I just want to push back on one thing.
I don't know how I can break it down more simply.
But let me push back on one thing. You said that the police are going to know who, of course they're going to know who the gangs in their town are, but do you know that motorbikes can travel outside of the town? This might be a new pickup for some people. Motorbikes can go more than just the town limits. So what I was just saying is, let's say the Ulysses Club is based in, let's say Dunedin. Let's say there's a fairly young new officer in Oamaru, and they decide to drive from Dunedin to Christchurch, and they go through Oamaru, and this 19, 20-year-old police officer sees a whole bunch of people on motorbikes with patches out that aren't from his or her town, just rolling through. Then what? I don't buy that. Of course the police are going to know who all the gangs are. Of course okay, if it's the big ones, of course. But what if it's not? What if it's a patched up looking group of hobbyists, cosplay gang members, if you will? Then what? It's going to happen. Mark my word, it's going to happen.
Often, gang members don't wear their patch when they're doing crimes because then it leads back to the gang.
True.
Like, they're not idiots. They do dumb things, but they're not that dumb. It's just, it's just laughable. And every time I see arguments like what Peter's saying, like what Luxon's saying, it's very clear that you don't know gangs, that you don't know MCs, you don't know how these people work. And I'm not professing to be an expert either. As I said, I grew up around the periphery of one. I never knew the inside of it. I didn't have any direct relatives that were in it. But a lot of their friends were. And that's where my knowledge comes from. So what we're saying is crime is bad and police should do stuff to stop crime, but they should do it in a way that doesn't infringe on people's right of expression, because that can be weaponized. It's someone's opinion of what a gang patch is. And you can say, oh, of course they know what a gang patch is. But do they? And is that enforceable in a law? Will that solve the problem? And my argument is it doesn't, because they're not clear enough. You can't take this to court. It's been proven not to work. It's failed before. So why are we discussing it?
Look, and finally,
you can point the police and go, stop crime, and they'll go, there's a lot of crime that comes out of gangs. Cool, stop that crime.
Finally, from me at least, I'm sure Chewie will have 7 other tangents. But finally, from me, I'm getting the vibe that a lot of the people who are like, yes, let's get rid of these gangs, are from the same sector of society that have just spent the past 3 years saying, don't trust the government. Don't trust the government.
Yes.
So the vibe that I'm getting is all of a sudden you're going to trust, remember, not just this government, but future governments dictating person X in New Zealand and what they can wear and where they can stand in town. Now, if you're one of the people who for the past 3 years has been going, don't trust this government, don't trust the government, and now you're like, I completely trust this government, they're the good ones. They're not.
Still the same police.
Still the same police, still the same justice system. If you're going to be someone, and just remember, when you trust things that happen on your side and you distrust things that happen on the other side, what happens is you become an ideologue and you become a hypocrite. You either trust the system wholeheartedly or you have a healthy distrust. Now, that also doesn't mean you distrust the system entirely. You have a healthy distrust for it. But that's just the point I wanted to leave us with. A lot of these people who are saying this is a good idea and the police will be able to handle it and the government will be able to figure it out, a lot of them are the same ones who have just spent us 3 years saying the government can't be trusted. I'll leave you with that.
I'm going to put on my international uniform of crime.
Right. Hey, been a good show. Feels wrong.
Yeah,
Here's
man.
my headphones.
I'm going to go and do some crime.
If you're in Dunedin, remember a friend of the show, Jeremy Elwood's got a show, and I can't remember the name of the theatre, but it's the one that the Fringe Festival office is in by the Octagon. $25 for tickets, $20 for concession tickets. Tomorrow night, Friday night, and so we might see you there if you're in Dunedin, and support Jeremy, support the work that he's doing. Other than that, I guess we've got a big afternoon tomorrow afternoon at 2:00. I might even do a live stream. I might even chuck up and jump in there and see what happens once it all happens. We'll let you know what's going on. But other than that, thank you to Natalie Ranger, who got some gear as we went through the show. There you go. There's Jeremy Elwood. What's the name of the theatre? I'm pretty sure it's the little one next to the Fringe office.
Oh God, I've got to work on my pronunciation. That's horrible.
I think it's three doors down from the Octagon. It's that one there, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And other than that, we'll catch you on Monday for a brand new week, a brand new edition of Big Hairy News. I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about on Monday because there'll be all the weekend shows. We'll have the final results from the election, and we'll be back then. Anything else from you, Chewie?
Just people asking for the discount code for merch. Was it the Bish?
It was the Bish, but that technically went till 10:30 tonight. And should I give me 10 seconds? Can you do a Fortnite dance or something, mate?
No, can't even
just do
twerk.
something. If I'll go, I'll just go in there and I'll put it till 11 p.m. There you go. So I've just extended. There you go. If someone's looking for it, I've just literally. That's how quick it takes. I've just extended the Bish one until 11 p.m. So that's got 26 minutes waiting on it. All right, team, we're done. We're dusted. We'll catch you from Monday night, 9 p.m. for another edition of Big Hero News. Be safe through the weekend. We want to see you all back Monday night. Make sure you bring a friend. Talk to you soon. All the best. All right, team. Hooroo.
Cheers, fam.